This is the Desert Plunge Cold Plunge. It's a cold plunge capable of reaching temperatures of 39 degrees without the use of ice. It can be shipped right to your doorstep anywhere in America within 2 to 5 days, and it's under $3,000. In today's video, we're gonna be fully setting this up and doing a full review to determine, is the Desert Plunge a cold plunge for you? Let's check it out. The first thing we're gonna look at is the actual cooler itself, what we're gonna be putting our bodies into. And what it is, it's a Grizzly 400 cooler, and a couple really cool things and why a lot of people are using the Grizzly 400 coolers as their tubs of choice is there's 2 inches of spray foam insulation inside this, which creates an incredible insulation, keeping the water inside this plunge really cold without a lot of use from the chiller itself or even from the ice. A couple other really nice things that people like me who are parents and have kids who are very curious is there are these 2 locking mechanisms that actually takes a little bit of force to unlatch. And they're right here, these 2 little rubber latches. There's also, if you really want to be cautious or you're leaving and you're going out of town, you can actually put a lock right here. There's a spot for a lock or a large carabiner right here in the front. There's 2 handles on both sides, makes it really easy for you to move this large cooler around. The handles are right here on the outside. And another thing that I like is down here underneath the cooler, there's actually 2 gaps, which I think you could use like one of those little hand dollies if you wanted to, but really what I like about it is when you get in and out of a cold plunge, a lot of times water comes out with you, and when a lot of water comes out, gets on the floor and can sometimes work its way under a cold plunge that sits flat on the floor, that can be a spot where some buildup can happen, and we don't want that. So it's nice that there's these gaps underneath that allow for a lot of airflow, keeping that water from building up and anything from growing. And then over here on this right side, there's 2 ports that have already been pre-installed and drilled, making the DIY on this, which there's gonna be a little bit you're gonna have to do, extremely easy. So basically down here at the bottom is where the water will come out, and it's gonna attach to some hoses. It's gonna go through a filter, a pump, a chiller, and then it will return back here to the top hole. And we're gonna set it all up and show you exactly how to do that here in a second. But it's nice that this has already been done for you so you don't have to worry about drilling any holes into your cooler. Now, one of the things Desert Plunge recommends is wherever you're gonna put your cooler, you wanna have about 12 inches on the back so that you have access to these things that are mounted to the back. And a couple of the really cool things that I like is they do have the optional ozone, and it comes pre-installed, so it's one less thing for me to have to worry about. So this is the ozone generator, which is gonna really help keep my water nice and clean. If you ever get one of those like smells, if you're using an ice bath right now and sometimes the water creates that like almost fish aquarium kind of fishy smell, that's because your water has something growing inside it and you don't want that. A lot of people use hydrogen peroxide, and I recommend people actually use ozone. The cool thing about the Desert Plunge is it comes with ozone already as an option, which is really nice. Inside here is where all of your electrical components will be stored nice and safely out of the elements, which is nice. And then down here is a timer for the ozone, so you don't have ozone constantly running inside your plunge. You don't really need it running all the time, but it's nice to have it running in the middle of the night, helping to keep that water nice and clean. Now let's go ahead and open this up and see what comes with it. So when I got this, it came in a box on a crate, and it was actually really nice how they shipped it right to my doorstep. Really easy for me, I didn't have to do any work. Once I took it out of the box, this is what it was. It was just the cooler, and I was like, where's everything else? Well, obviously, it's right inside. There's something that I really like about the Desert Plunge that I haven't seen on the Grizzly coolers before, and that's this little lid lock. Now, it's not something you really think that you're gonna need unless you have kids and you live in an area where there can be some wind. A lot of people put these outside. I'm one of them. I like to keep my coolers and my cold plunges outside because I live in Florida and it's really nice to be outside in 80, 90, 100 degree heat and get into sub 40 degree water. It's really nice. But my kids also like to get into these cold plunges, and when they get into it, sometimes I fear that the wind is gonna knock the lid down. Well, Desert Plunge uses this little lid lock right here, which is unique to them, and I really like it because it keeps the lid up. It keeps it secure, it keeps it from moving, keeps it from closing in on one of my kids or even on myself. And then to unlatch it, you just lift it up, and then it shuts just like it normally would. But it's nice that that's already installed. It's one less thing for me to have to worry about, and it's a really nice safety feature. Another thing I'm a huge fan of, because it was the first chiller I ever used, it's still a chiller that I use to this day, and it's been bulletproof for me, is the Active Aqua. Now, one of the coolest things that I've realized about using insulated coolers, like the ice barrel that's insulated, the Grizzly coolers, or any of the other plunges that have really good insulation, is you don't have to use a half or a full horsepower or even a 1.5 horsepower chiller like I've used in the past when I've used other tubs that maybe don't have any insulation at all. When you're battling the Florida heat, you really need to have a higher horsepower chiller. But with these, you can get away with a 1/4 horsepower chiller, and I'm real excited to test this out during the summer. We've had some really, really hot days already, and I've used the 1/4 horsepower with a Grizzly Cooler, and it works like a charm. I'm really, really impressed. Matter of fact, it's something that I even recommend to people now. If you're gonna be using something insulated, you don't need a 1/2 or a full horsepower chiller anymore. You can save the money, get a 1/4 horsepower chiller, and invest in spending a little bit more money on the tub that you're using. And that's why I think that for the money, Desert Plunge is a pretty good option for the price point. And then you have this other box here, which we're gonna open up and see what's all inside. In the brown box, we get everything we need to put this thing together, and it's all wrapped up nice. So this looks like the pump itself. So we've got our pump there. We've got a water filter. We've got a GFCI adapter, which is nice. We've got all the other tubes. We've got a sediment filter, which, ooh, I like a sediment filter. So here's something about filters. A lot of people discount the filter, like they just buy a cold plunge because it has an all-in-one chiller and it has a filter, and that's great. I gotta tell you, a lot of the filters that I use, I like that this is a sediment filter. I did not expect that, but a lot of the chillers that I've used that have like the 20 micron or 50 micron filters, you have to replace the filters like every 2 weeks, and I'm not exaggerating. I keep my cold plunges pretty clean. I make people rinse off. I make sure people rinse off their feet before they get into them. But these cold plunges are constantly running, and they're constantly cycling through, and stuff gets in there. If you have, like, my wife gets into the cold plunge, my daughters get into the cold plunge, they have long hair. That's something to really be mindful of, because the long hair, when you get in, you know, it falls out. When you take a shower and you wash your hair, you always find hair on your hands. Your hair will fall out. It'll fall out when they're in the cold plunge, especially if they're dunking. And that can sometimes get wrapped up in the filter or the pump itself, damaging the pump. I like that there's a sediment filter because I feel like this is gonna do a better job of keeping the stuff out of the pump, but more importantly, and the chiller, but more importantly, I feel like I won't have to replace this as much. I guess time will tell, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll be sharing a lot more of this Desert Plunge journey as I have this thing set up and we use this thing on a regular basis. I'm very curious to see how the sediment filter holds up the way we use our cold plunges. This looks like the filter itself, the extra pipes. Ooh, that's nice, a little extra filter to keep, a pre-filter to keep the hair from going into the filter. I'm a huge fan of that, that's awesome. And then the tool we need to take the filter off. Sometimes the filter can be a little bit tight to get off once it's been on there for, you know, a month or so. So having this tool around is definitely gonna come in handy. And that's it. Let's go ahead and put this thing together. It can't be that hard. Everything's unboxed. We've got our chiller, we've got our pump, and everything else set up. We've got our filters, our GFCI, and all the parts. It's very, very simple. There's actually not a lot going on down here, and I'm gonna show you exactly how to set everything up and hook everything up. But one of the things I really wanna point out and I really wanna do next is I wanna measure the cooler, because a lot of times when you look at the measurements online, you can't really tell what that means to you. Now, I'm 6'1", I'm 205 pounds currently, and I'm gonna get into this thing and I'm gonna show you some different ways of actually getting into your Grizzly Cooler, your Desert Plunge, so that you can really enjoy the experience of cold plunging. Can you head dunk? The answer is yes. I wanna go ahead and answer that because a lot of people have that question. They ask, can you actually get fully submerged, fully underwater? And there's really nothing in this tub that's gonna get in your way of being able to get fully underwater. But in this next part, let's go ahead and do some measurements of the cooler itself. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shut the lid and we're gonna just measure from the floor, because I also think it's important to figure out how much room do you actually need? How much space do you need for a Desert Plunge? So I'm gonna measure from handle to handle, and we're talking 55 inches. So 55 inches from handle to handle. Now that doesn't mean that's all you need, because you're gonna need room on this side for your chiller. Your chiller will sit on the side over here. Now Desert Plunge also recommends that you have 12 inches off the back wall. So we've got 12 inches here. That gives us plenty of space to play around back here if and when we need to. Next, let's look at the height measurement. So from the ground to the top, we're just at 32, just over 32 inches. So kind of right here, kind of at my thigh. With the lid open, because sometimes you don't take into account how high this thing's gonna be with the lid open, right? So from the ground to the top of the lid open, we're at 58.5 inches. As you can see, right at my shoulder. Now let's talk about the width of the actual cooler itself. we're right at 32 inches, but we've got some components back here that we need. So we're gonna actually need a little bit more space. We're talking just at 35 inches, and that does not include the additional 12 inches you're gonna need in the back so that you can actually get to the components in the back. Now let's open it back up and let's measure the inside, because this is really the important part. We're talking about the outside and how much room we're gonna need, but the inside is where you're gonna be getting in. So let's go ahead and make sure there's plenty of room for you. All right, so Desert Plunge states that a 6'8" person should easily be able to fit in here and get fully submerged. I kind of think that they're right on that. So we've got 43.5 inches lengthwise inside. Now that's where the water's gonna be. We've got 25 inches widthwise, which is great. That's where your shoulders are gonna be, so it gives you a good amount of room for your shoulders. And as far as depth goes, we're at 24.5 inches as well. Now here's a pro tip. Anytime you are filling this up for the first time, you have to understand that when you get into the water will rise. So when you're filling this up, it's very important for you to not fill it all the way up to the tippy top, because as soon as you get in or anyone gets in, that water is going to overflow all over your components, all over your floor. And if you have this somewhere that you don't want the floor to get soaking wet, that's gonna be a problem. So what I recommend doing is filling this up to the top eyelet where the water will come in. Just fill it right up to that, then get in and adjust from there. When you get in, you can kind of see where the water level is and fill it up during that time while you're inside it. And then another pro tip I highly encourage you to do is, once you've figured out the perfect fill line for yourself, take a little permanent marker and just do like a little dot. Just put a little dot somewhere where only you know what it is, what that means, and that'll let you know if your water's getting a little bit low and you need to refill it, and you're not gonna have to guess, and you're gonna obviously avoid having water spew all over your floor. So that's like a little pro tip that I think can help a lot of people. So we're gonna set it up now. The first thing I'm gonna do is take my pre-filter and I'm gonna put it on the inside of the Desert Plunge. There's actually a hole at the bottom, and that's where this will just fit right in there. And what that's gonna do is catch any hair or any grass or rocks or toys or any kind of debris that could possibly damage your pump that you don't need to go through your filter. And what's cool about it too is whenever it fills up, you just pull it out. It's like a little canister. You flick everything out, you take a hose, you spray it out, and that's gonna help extend the life of your pump, but also extend the life of your filter. Setup is actually really easy. Everything comes pretty much assembled. All you have to do is take the tape off, which is gonna prevent anything or any animals from making their way into the pump, keeping it nice and safe, which I've already done over here. You'll take the long hose and you'll actually screw it right into the bottom of this Grizzly Cooler right here. And that's gonna go into the pump. The pump will rest on the ground back here. And as you can see, everything kind of goes where it's already wanting to go. You take your filter and you already have these screws up here and you literally just drop it right into place. You're gonna take the tape off once you're ready to put this whole thing on. So then you just take it over here and then you take this little black piece and you literally connect it right here into the pump. Screw that in there, super simple. And now this is where you're gonna wanna set it up exactly where you want it, because you're not gonna be able to move everything around very easily, but you're gonna take your chiller and you're gonna put your chiller over here to the side, and then you're gonna have the little tiny tube is gonna go right here, and then this one is gonna connect to your chiller just like this. Once again, everything kind of is already angled and in the same position that it wants to be in naturally, so it's gonna make the setup very, very easy. And then all you do is you take your plug from your pump and your plug from your chiller, you connect it to the power strip inside here, and then there's one cord, just one cord that you have to plug into the wall, and that'll power everything up. Let's go ahead and do that. We are fully set up. That took me about 5 minutes, like legitimately, other than fumbling around with cameras and trying to make sure that I get the shots that you need. I think it was very, very simple, and anybody can easily put this thing together anywhere they want. It's not heavy. I was able to move it around. One of the biggest recommendations I can make to you is use one of these. This will come with your Desert Plunge. It's a water filter for your hose. So basically when you're filling this up with your hose water, it's gonna keep all of the contaminants and different sediments that are in your well water or your city water or whatever your hose water is out of your system. It's gonna filter all that out. So you're gonna have really, really clean water to start with. And that's gonna help keep your water cleaner much longer. You're not gonna have to replace it as often. You're not gonna have to replace your filter as often. If you don't use one of these, you'll probably find that like within a week, maybe even a few days of turning it on and cycling all the water through the filter, your filter is gonna get really, really clogged up really fast because it's filtering out all the stuff that this could have filtered out. So that's why this is very, very important, and that's why I recommend using these. And I'm super glad it comes with the Desert Plunge kit. So make sure you use this. Oh yeah, pro tip, make sure that you do not put this in your plunge before you run it for about 10 seconds. So you're gonna wanna have this attached to your hose, aimed out into the yard or something, because a lot of black sediment from the carbon filters in here will come out first, and that's the last thing you want, is to have all of this beautiful setup ready to go, and then you spew black carbon water into it in the very beginning. So just don't put this in there until you let it filter out. All right, so we're gonna give that a few minutes to fill up, and a couple really cool things you can do at this point. And I know I'm speaking out of experience because I've reviewed a lot of cold plunges, and it's one of the things that I absolutely love. If there's a cold plunge company you think that I should review, or there's a question that you have, pop it down in the comments below. I love engaging. And a matter of fact, that's exactly how this review even came about. So I post and publish a lot of reviews on a lot of different cold plunges, and then I like to read the comments and see what are some of the other brands and what are some of the other cold plunges that people may want me to review, or what are some of the questions that they have that maybe I didn't even think about. Because I live here in Florida, so I'm not having to deal with a lot of the elements like people up in the north where it freezes and you have to protect your chiller. Anyway, long story short, I had enough people reach out to me and say, hey, can you please review Desert Plunge? And I'm like, well, sure. I've had a little bit of contact with them. Let's have a conversation. So I got to talk to Bree and Matt, who are the founders of Desert Plunge, and their story was what was so inspiring to me. See, Matt and I have a lot of similarities. We were both in big corporate jobs, working hard, doing really, really well financially, but man, like mentally, we were just becoming a little bit anxiety ridden, and maybe, I don't even want to use the word depressed, but maybe depression was part of it, right? Tried a bunch of different things, tried medication, tried all these different things that people were recommending, and then somebody along the lines recommends try cold plunge, and cold plunging changed his life. Cold plunging changed my life. So we had a lot of similarities, and when we were talking, he was sharing his story and his vision behind Desert Plunge is to help everybody who's suffering from some sort of mental depression or anxiety or even insomnia, help them get cold affordably. And that's what I love about Desert Plunge, is it's an affordable cold plunge, very easy to set up, it doesn't take up a large footprint, and it looks pretty cool. A cool looking plunge. Now they come in gray and tan, and they come in this Grizzly 400. And I hear there's maybe some cool things coming in the future. They're working on some new developments, and that's one of the other things I love about Matt and Bree, is they were very open about their process of developing this, and they were very open about the fact that they did a lot of different DIYs for a lot of people before landing on this. And it's pretty exciting because it's super affordable, super easy to set up, and I think that people are going to love it. And if you want to get yourself one, there will be a link down in the description below with a discount code. That'll be MAUS, MAUS. It'll save you an extra $100 on top of any of the other sales they have going on. So make sure you check that out, share it with a friend or anybody who might want to get cold, or anybody you think might benefit from cold water therapy, which is something that I'm super passionate about, Matt's super passionate about, and if you're watching this, you're probably somewhat passionate about it, or you're about to be hooked. A few other frequently asked questions is, what's the lead time? Because that's another big problem in the cold plunge world, is a lot of times you'll go to buy one and you won't get it for weeks. Well, Desert Plunge currently has a 2 to 5 day lead time, meaning if you purchase one today, there's a really good chance it could be at your door within the next 2 to 5 days, which is amazing. They ship all over the United States of America, and they're based right out of Arizona, which is awesome. So they're very familiar with creating cold plunges in a very hot environment. And that's what I love about this, is I'm in Florida, it's very, very hot, and having a cold plunge that doesn't have to take up a ton of electricity. Everything's extremely efficient because you're only using a 1/4 horsepower chiller, and the pump is extremely efficient as well. All right, so here's the cool thing, is because the inlet where the water goes in is all the way at the bottom, all you have to do is make sure that the water is above that line, and you can test it. You don't have to fill it all the way up before you test it to make sure that everything's working really, really well. Now, one thing I like to recommend doing, if you're gonna do that, is actually force water into the top hole. It's gonna go through your chiller. Oh, and you'll see the areas that you didn't tighten. It's gonna force water through your chiller, and it'll force water into your pump as well. So now that we've got water in our pump, we've got water in our filter, we've got water in our chiller, we can actually turn this thing on and see how it works. There we go. So now once you test it, there was a few areas that I didn't tighten all the way. So once you tighten it all, that's why you saw some water back there. And once you have it all tight and everything looks good, now you can actually turn on your chiller. So we have everything connected. It's all connected to the power strip inside, and it's all connected to currently the GFCI power. Now, all you have to do with this chiller, because this chiller might seem like the most overwhelming piece to this puzzle, it's actually extremely easy to operate. All you do is you turn it on down here at the bottom right, there's a little green button. You're gonna flip that on, and it's already on. Right now it's on to run 24/7 as a boost, meaning it's going to work really, really hard to get the water down to that temperature. It's set at 75 currently, so that lets you know, like, you can set this thing up as high as you want. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna press the set button. The little number is going to flash, and we're going to just crank that thing down, and we're gonna let this thing get to work. What temperature do you think we should set it to? And you hit set again, and we're ready to go. Boost is on 24/7, so it's gonna work really, really hard at making sure that the water gets cold really fast and it stays there. And you'll hear it kick on. It might make a little tiny noise, like a little bit of a fan noise, but the 1/4 horsepower chiller is really, really efficient and really, really quiet. And that's one of the things I really love about this setup. And as luck would have it, because I live in Florida and this is just what I get, you know, it's pouring down rain and I just heard thunder. I think I'm safe. You know, like growing up in Florida, it's one of those things like you don't really fear lightning and thunder, you just respect it. So yeah, the good news is we got this bad boy set up, and hopefully most of the vocals and the things you needed to hear have already happened. Okay, since it's raining and we're very close to that fill line I was telling you about, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in so you can see how the water rises up, and then we're gonna talk about it. So even though it's not cold, it's still cold. You know, it's still hose water, so it's not like it's warm and comfy and the sun just kind of went down and it's raining, so it's still uncomfortable. It's just not a cold plunge right now. But as you can see, when I got in, the water rose about 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches, so you want to keep that in mind. That's why I always recommend when the water hits that top eyelet, or it's right around that top eyelet, to get in so you can see how the water is going to rise. And then to get out and then keep getting back in, like maybe every 5-10 minutes, just to make sure that you don't allow the water to get to that point where when you do get in and it's cold, all the water overflows. So you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on it. But one of the things that I love, once again, and I mentioned this earlier, is when you get into a cold plunge, you know, like getting into it empty is totally different than getting into it with water. Because when you get into anything with water, your body's a little buoyant and you're able to somewhat float and just, I would say, get way more comfy than you are able to when there's no water in this thing. So there's a lot of room for my shoulders. That's kind of one of the things I like about this cooler, is there's a lot of room. You know, there's room lengthwise. I can cross my legs and just really sink down and get really comfortable. So if you're not super flexible and you don't want to have your feet parallel and your knees up into your chest, you can actually cross your feet and your legs and just kind of put them down towards the end of the plunge. There's a couple different ways I like to do this. One is I like to just have my neck out here, and once the water's more full, the water will be up to my collarbone, and that's ideal. When you're cold plunging, you want to ideally have the water up to your collarbone. You want to ideally have all of your limbs under the water, and ideally, said it a lot, ideally you want to actually get fully submerged the second you get in. And I'm not a scientist, none of this is health advice or medical advice. This is me just sharing things that I've learned, but apparently the dive reflex helps to stimulate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic system. Listen, all this is scientific and stuff like that. Basically what it does is it allows your body to become really calm. And if you're someone who is riddled with stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, it's one of the best things you could do for yourself. And don't take my word for it. Take the words of thousands of others around the world who've experienced cold plunging and how life-changing it can be. There's a lot of really great resources online. There's a lot of great people that you could follow that really educate the masses on the benefits of cold plunging. Wim Hof is one of them. He's the Iceman. He's the guy who a lot of people follow. He does a lot of breath work. Very similar to most of us, he was struggling with depression and anxiety, and cold plunging and ice therapy changed his life. So he's sharing it with many, I'm sharing it with many. And one of the things that I'm also doing that I'm kind of excited about, and I have no problem sharing, hopefully you don't mind me interrupting this video and sharing, is I actually came up with a playbook for creators, people like myself who have a story to tell and aren't really afraid to share it or feel like they can help people by sharing it. So I came up with this masterclass on how to become a content creator. More importantly, not just becoming a content creator, but how to share your story and how to make it a career. I've been able to take a 20-year career and leave that to become a full-time content creator. And God's blessed me with really great partnerships and really great brands that I get to work with, but more importantly, really great people that actually care to watch my videos. And I'm thankful for you. You've changed my life. And if you want to check out the Playbook, if it's something you've ever considered, if you've ever wanted to maybe start a YouTube channel, become a content creator, and a lot of times we start these things as a hobby and it's fun, and then we realize that you can actually make a living doing it and helping people around the world. It's been incredible. So if you want to check that out, I'll have a link down in the description below. It's dmjr.co/playbook. It took a lot of time to put together, and I'm really proud of it. So I'd love for you to check it out. Even if you have no interest of becoming a content creator, if you would just go check out the link, check out my site, and give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. I've had some really, really good feedback so far, and once again, I'm really proud of it. So I'd love for you to take a look at it. But anyway, back to this. So as we've been talking, the water's been filling back up. And ideally, I would want to have the water about, when I'm fully under, I would want to have about where it is right now, about 2 inches of water, because when you go underwater, watch this. When you go fully underwater, obviously the water can rise even more. And I like to avoid the overflow effect, just because there are components back here that are they're in weatherproof boxes. This thing can be fully outside in the sun. It's better and it's suggested to be under a cover of some sorts because it's going to help keep your water nice and cold longer, and it's going to obviously help extend the life of your components and everything, because if you're like me in Florida, the sun can do some damage on things. It's just suggested, but I have it in a nice little covered porch area right now. I'm going to go turn the hose off real quick, and we're going to do some final recaps on this thing. Well, this is the Desert Plunge, and I would have to say this thing is pretty awesome. So the Desert Plunge to me is a perfect plunge for anybody who's looking to get into cold plunging, wants something that's bulletproof and affordable, and that's what I love about this. Now, not to discount any of the other cold plunges out there, because at the end of the day, I want to see everybody get healthy. I want to see everybody enjoy the benefits of cold plunging. But a couple of things that really stand out to me on the Desert Plunge compared to some of the others is the insulation is key, extremely durable. It's something you're not going to have to worry about getting dinged, dented, or popped like some of the inflatables. The chiller is one of my favorites. I highly recommend Active Aqua. If you've watched any of my other videos, I have a lot of DIYs where I show you how to DIY your own cold plunge. I almost always recommend using Active Aqua. It's what I've been using, and the thing has been bulletproof. I'm real excited about the 1/4 horsepower because, as you can hear, it's on right now. That's it. That's as loud as it gets, and I have the microphone literally on the fan. So it's not loud at all. This is going to be the master bedroom right here, so it's literally right outside the master bedroom. Isn't going to affect our sleep at all. It's not even loud, which is super nice. The pump that is used is extremely quiet and very, very durable from what I've heard. Super excited about this. This is going to be great. The filtration system's awesome. The pre-filter is awesome. I'm a big fan. So here's the thing. You need to decide if this is something that you would consider. And if you have any questions that I did not go over in this video, please pop them down in the comments below. I love to answer all questions. I became friends of Matt and Breeze, who are the founder of Desert Plunge. So if you have any questions directly for them, I can be a little bit of a buffer for you. So make sure you pop those down in the comments below. If you want to get yourself a Desert Plunge, I will have links down in the description below. I'll also pop them up on the screen. You can use discount code MAUS. That's MAUS, and that'll save you $100 on top of anything else they have going on. So if you want to get yourself a Desert Plunge, make sure to use that discount code in that link. If not, if you have any reservations, if there's anything you don't like about this, also let me know in the comments below, because I'm always interested in hearing your feedback. So let me know if there's any questions, comments, suggestions, or anything that you might have in the comments below. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day, and God bless. Oh yeah, and before you go, if you haven't checked out my latest video on my morning routines, now this is gonna seem crazy, but how your morning routines actually affect you. I really think it's a video. I'm excited about it, and I want you to check it out. It's right here. So I know you're watching this video because it's a review of the Desert Plunge. Watch this video. It's short, and I really think it can benefit you and maybe some other people. So check that out. That video will be right here.